you kind of think, well, no, I'm determined to do well here and carry it on just for the sake of his name and English cricket. So I would say that's the key.
OK, Ronnie Rani, thank you very much indeed. We'll interrupt our programme now and I'll hand to the news desk and speak to Philip Hayton.
Now, I'm afraid we've got some very sad news. It's just been announced that the Queen Mother has died. Buckingham Palace have announced that. She died peacefully in her sleep this afternoon, according to the palace, at the Royal Lodge in Windsor. I'll just repeat that again. According to Buckingham Palace, the Queen Mother has died. She died peacefully in her sleep at the Royal Lodge in Windsor. She has, of course, been plagued by bad health in recent years. We saw her there with her sticks. She had a bad hip. More recently, though, she managed to get to the funeral of her daughter, Princess Margaret. There we can see her. I think this is at the rechristening of the Ark Royal. This was about 3 or 4 months ago, last autumn, one of her last public appearances. An indomitable spirit that won the affection of the nation. She had a remarkable personal charisma about her. I think anyone who has met her sensed that there was something special about her. It wasn't so much what she said, but just the way she handled things, her interest in the people that she was talking to. She always tried to remain as active as possible. There we can see her, it looks like St. George's Chapel at Windsor, perhaps. Absolutely indefatigable in her public duties. If you're just joining us, remind you that Buckingham Palace have announced that the Queen Mother has died. She died peacefully in her sleep this afternoon at Royal Lodge, Windsor. Elizabeth Bowes-Lyon, she was a much-loved daughter of a Scottish aristocrat. The First World War began on her 14th birthday. One of her brothers was killed on the Western Front, and the family seat, Glamis Castle near Dundee, was turned into a convalescent home. And the teenage Elizabeth spent the war caring for wounded soldiers. Now let's join Peter Sissons.
This is BBC One. We're interrupting our programme for an important announcement.
This is BBC Television News. Buckingham Palace has just announced the death of the Queen Mother. In a statement, the palace said the Queen Mother has died. BBC Television is broadcasting this special programme reporting the Queen Mother's death. This is BBC Television News. Buckingham Palace has just announced the death of the Queen Mother. In a statement, the palace said the Queen Mother has died peacefully in her sleep. BBC Television is broadcasting this special programme reporting the Queen Mother's death. The Queen Mother's life spanned the last century, and her life saw many phases. Born a commoner, she would become a duchess and later queen. Her role as Queen Mother has lasted 5 decades. Nicholas Witchell now looks back at a long and eventful life.
Elizabeth Bowes-Lyon was born as the 20th century began, a much-loved daughter of a Scottish aristocrat. The First World War began on her 14th birthday. One of her brothers was killed on the Western Front, and the family seat, Glamis Castle near Dundee, was turned into a convalescent home. The teenage Elizabeth spent the war caring for wounded soldiers. 1918, Britain, its empire and its allies celebrated victory. The brutality of war gave way to the frivolity of the 20s. Elizabeth entered London society. One of her admirers was Prince Albert, Duke of York, the second son of King George V. Bertie, as he was known, fell deeply in love with her. But Elizabeth wasn't sure whether she wanted a life in the royal family. However, after Bertie's third proposal, she accepted. They were married on the 26th of April, 1923, at Westminster Abbey. The new Duchess of York was an immediate success. She brought a new warmth to the royal family. With her at his side, the intensely shy Duke seemed less awkward and the monarchy less remote. The couple had 2 daughters, Elizabeth and Margaret. Nothing, it seemed, could threaten their happiness. But in 1936, George V died. His eldest son, Edward VIII, abdicated after a few months, and Bertie suddenly found the responsibilities of the monarchy thrust upon him. It was a role the couple had never expected, and for which the stammering Bertie, King George VI as he was now, was particularly unprepared. Yet, with the constant support of Elizabeth, his queen consort, they set about restoring the monarchy's reputation.
Suddenly and unexpectedly, their Majesties break away from their attendants and cross the road to the ex-servicemen. Perhaps never before have the King and Queen won so completely the heart of a mighty crowd.
But the greatest challenge was to follow, as Britain again went to war with Germany and its cities faced the Blitz.
In daylight raids, between 350 and 400 enemy aircraft were launched in 2 attacks against London and southeast England. About half of them were shot down.
Buckingham Palace itself was bombed. The King and Queen narrowly escaped injury. Afterwards, the Queen famously said, "Now I can look the East End in the face." It was these wartime experiences, as the King and Queen shared their people's hardships, that created a new bond between Britain and its monarchy. So much so that when victory was celebrated, Prime Minister Winston Churchill said the royal couple were more beloved than all the princes of the past. And so when George VI died a few years later, at the relatively young age of 56, there was genuine grief. Elizabeth wrote about being engulfed in black clouds of misery. It was thought she might retire from public life, but a few months later, she was back on duty in a new role as Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother.
It's good to have Her Majesty's gracious presence once more a part of our lives.
It was a role she was to fulfill for the next half-century. Though many of her attitudes were certainly those of an earlier age, when deference and dignity were paramount, her warmth with people earned her the affection of generation after generation. On her 100th birthday, she stood once again on the balcony of Buckingham Palace. Elizabeth Bowes-Lyon, a woman born without royal blood in the reign of Queen Victoria, who helped to redefine royal style and maintain the position of the British monarchy.
You're watching BBC Television News. Buckingham Palace has just announced the death of the Queen Mother. The news was given in an official statement by the palace in the past few minutes. She died, the palace said, peacefully in her sleep this afternoon at Royal Lodge, Windsor. Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, had become, the statement goes on, increasingly frail in recent weeks following her bad cough and chest infection over Christmas. Her condition deteriorated this morning and her doctors were called. Queen Elizabeth died peacefully in her sleep at 3:15 this afternoon at Royal Lodge. Well, our royal correspondent Jennie Bond joined us on the phone. Jennie, can you add anything to that? You're watching the BBC. Within the last hour, Buckingham Palace announced that the Queen Mother died peacefully in her sleep at 3:15 this afternoon at the Royal Lodge, Windsor, at the age of 101. The Queen was by her bedside. The Queen Mother's coffin is expected to be taken to the Royal Chapel of All Saints in Windsor Great Park tomorrow morning. In the past few minutes, Prince Charles was said to be devastated and on his way back from his family holiday, skiing holiday with the Princes William and Harry. The Queen Mother's life, as we've been told, spanned the last century, and her life saw many phases too. Born a commoner, she would become a duchess and later queen. Her role as Queen Mother has lasted 5 decades. Nicholas Witchell now looks back at a long and eventful life.
She was born Elizabeth Bowes-Lyon in August 1900, the 9th of 10 children of a Scottish aristocrat. It was a happy childhood, much of it spent in the company of her younger brother David. But on Elizabeth's 14th birthday, the world went to war. Her elder brothers joined up. One of them was killed in the trenches. The family home became a convalescent hospital for wounded soldiers, and Elizabeth helped to run it. A lifelong sense of duty had taken root. 1918, the First World War had ended, and Elizabeth had entered London society. There she met the second son of the King, Prince Albert, Duke of York. Bertie was a shy man with a terrible stammer, but he wooed Elizabeth, and eventually in 1923 she agreed to marry him. The wedding was in Westminster Abbey. Plans to broadcast it on the wireless were shelved because the Abbey said men might be listening in public houses. After the service, the new Duchess of York made her first appearance on the balcony of Buckingham Palace. Elizabeth Bowes-Lyon, born a commoner, had joined the British royal family. The newcomer brought a breath of fresh air to a monarchy which was still steeped in the traditions of an earlier age. By the mid-30s, the Duke and Duchess had 2 daughters, Elizabeth and Margaret, but the course of all their lives was about to change forever. The Duke's elder brother succeeded to the throne in January 1936, but the new king, Edward VIII, had fallen in love with Wallis Simpson, an American divorcee. She was not acceptable as queen, and rather than give her up, Edward gave up his throne. Bertie was now king, his title George VI, and Elizabeth was his queen consort. The royal couple faced a double challenge: to restore the reputation of the monarchy and to steady the nerve of the nation as it faced its darkest hours. On the 3rd of September 1939, the king broadcast to the empire.
For the second time in the lives of most of us, we are at war.
By 1940, the Blitz had begun. British cities were bombed by German aircraft night after night. Every day, Elizabeth and the King toured the bomb sites to comfort and encourage.
Many there are whose homes have been shattered by the fire of the enemy. The dwellings can be rebuilt, but nothing can restore the family circle if a dear one has gone forever from it. The King and I are grateful to think that we and our family are remembered in your prayers.
After Buckingham Palace itself was bombed, Elizabeth said she felt she could once again look the East End of London in the face. And she declined suggestions to send the two princesses to safety in Canada. They cannot go without me, she said. I cannot go without the King, and the King would never go. The Second World War ended in 1945, and the King and Queen were at the centre of the national celebrations. But just 7 years later, the King was dead from lung cancer, and Elizabeth was a widow at the age of just 51. Her daughter was now the sovereign. Elizabeth was still a queen, but not the queen. She had to create a new role for herself. Which is what she did for nearly half a century, touring the country and touring the Commonwealth. She remained as busy as she had been before. In her later years, the royal family's domestic problems undoubtedly caused unhappiness. She was distressed by the breakdown of so many marriages and dismayed by signs that the relationship between monarchy and the people was growing weaker. Yet public respect for her never seemed to diminish. Her public engagements continued. Many of them recalled her role as wartime queen. This was 1995, the 50th anniversary of the end of the war.
There'll be bluebirds over the white cliffs of Dover. Tomorrow, just you wait and see.
With the year 2000 came her 100th birthday. It was a milestone she'd been determined to achieve, to receive her 100th birthday card from Buckingham Palace. Once more, she stood on the balcony with her family all around her. But even then, there was one more sadness to come, the death 18 months later of her younger daughter, Princess Margaret, after a debilitating illness. So much has changed in the many decades since Elizabeth Bowes-Lyon first stepped to the centre of the nation's affairs. She it was who helped to restore the royal family's reputation after the trauma of the abdication. She it was who found a way to lighten the royal touch without any loss of dignity. And she it was who, for more than 60 years as Queen Consort and then as Queen Mother, was a symbol of stability and reassurance in an ever-changing world. The last in a lifetime of journeys will bring Elizabeth here, to Windsor, to St. George's Chapel. Here, for centuries, kings and queens have said their private prayers, and many have found their final rest. To one side of the choir is a tiny chapel, newly fashioned from the ancient stone, in memory of George VI, Elizabeth's beloved Bertie. His resting place is marked by a plain marble slab, and here, beside him once more, Elizabeth's story will draw to a close.
Do all the secrets go to her grave with her? Because she must be a repository of the most amazing knowledge and insights and tittle-tattle. Do we have to rely on Lord Wyatt's diaries for it all, rather than anything that she's left us?
Well, sadly, you're right. She never did give an interview. I held out hopes perhaps in this Jubilee year she might have done that, but she had no intention of doing so. But I do believe that she has, over the past 2 or 3 years, spoken at some length, possibly on tape, I don't know, but certainly at some length to a person, a good friend, and that has been written down and stored away. Whether it will be released in the short term or long term, I don't know. But as you say, she had the most extraordinary perspective on life and was a woman who enjoyed life to the full. You see her here at Ascot, Royal Ascot. Now, she never missed that if she possibly could. Absolutely adored racing, as we know.
And very knowledgeable about it.
Very knowledgeable. And even, I think it was just 10 days ago, as I was saying when I was on the phone, she had a party, or she was at a party, something to do with racing, I believe something to do with the Cheltenham Festival. So even in her wheelchair, she was following the racing, I was told, and enjoying racing company. Hugely knowledgeable about it, yes.
Now, she's gone. And immediately there are arrangements to be made. Is it going to be a state funeral?
No, it won't. We've got no details about this at the moment, but it won't be a state funeral.
Also, because of today's events, we won't be showing the National Lottery draw live, but it will still go ahead, and we'll bring you the details of the numbers drawn just before the news at 9 o'clock. You might like to know that Casualty will now be shown on BBC 2 at 8:10. So now on BBC One, by way of tribute, we remember the long and celebrated life of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother.
In 1908, Leonora Lang dedicated her book of Princes and Princesses to 8-year-old Elizabeth Bowes Lyon. The last story ends amidst the welcoming shouts of the English people. Elizabeth was proclaimed Queen. 30 years later, that's exactly what happened.
Now on BBC One, a special BBC News with Peter Sissons.
The Queen Mother has died peacefully at the age of 101. The announcement from Buckingham Palace said the Queen was at her bedside. Within minutes, people young and old started to gather and remember. The Prime Minister's tribute, she symbolised Britain's decency and courage. Good evening. Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, has died in her 102nd year. She died at Windsor at 3:15 this afternoon. Buckingham Palace said the end was peaceful and the Queen was at her side. Members of the royal family are arriving at Windsor tonight. Prince Charles, who says he's devastated, and the Princes William and Harry will return from their skiing holiday in Switzerland tomorrow. The Prime Minister has led the nation's tributes. She was, he said, admired by all people of all ages and backgrounds, revered within our borders and beyond. Parliament is to be recalled for MPs to pay their tributes next week. The Queen Mother's body will be moved tomorrow morning to the Royal Chapel of All Saints at Windsor, and funeral plans will be known in the next few days. Tonight, at Windsor and Buckingham Palace, people young and old are gathering, some of them leaving flowers, and all with their own memories of a remarkable and much-loved member of the royal family. Our first report tonight is by our royal correspondent, Jennie Bond.
At Windsor Castle tonight, the Queen is mourning the loss of her mother, who at times had seemed so indestructible, but whose life finally ebbed away at 3:15 this afternoon. She died at her home close to the castle, where she'd been since the funeral of her younger daughter, Princess Margaret, in February. A statement from Buckingham Palace was issued at 5:45. It said, "The Queen, with the greatest sadness, has asked for the following announcement to be made immediately. Her beloved mother, Queen Elizabeth, died peacefully in her sleep this afternoon at Royal Lodge, Windsor." As well-wishers began to gather at the castle gates, more details emerged of the Queen Mother's final hours. Her doctors had been called this morning after her condition had deteriorated. The Queen and other members of the family gathered at her bedside. A local clergyman was called to say prayers. The Queen was with her mother when she died. Her niece, Margaret Rhodes, was there too. She said the end was peaceful and the Queen Mother would be greatly missed.
She was a wonderful, wonderful person. It was a wonderful life, spanning a whole more than 100 years. One can hardly believe that somebody who grew up in the horse age has seen people landing on the moon and all the things that happen now. She was just a wonderful person to know that we'll almost never see the like of again.
At Windsor, mourners expressed their sorrow at the passing of a woman who'd been part of our national life for most of a century.
She's been such a long-standing figure. She's provided such continuity to the royal family. Huge loss.
Yes, it's very sad it's happened this year, isn't it, with the Jubilee as well. So, very sad.
I think a piece of history has died today as well. I mean, the Queen Mother's one of probably the few people who witnessed the whole of the 20th century.
The Queen Mother's health began declining soon after her last major public appearance, a visit to the Ark Royal at Portsmouth in November. Then she had shown her customary zest for life, spending some 3 hours with the crew and their families.
It's wonderful to feel that now that she's going to be at sea and guarding our shores just as the days of yore.
A few weeks later, though, she developed a chest infection and bad cough, which she found hard to throw off. She became increasingly frail, and by the time of Princess Margaret's funeral last month, she was confined to a wheelchair. She hated being seen in it and travelled to the service in a car with blacked-out windows. Her death has come as a particular blow for Prince Charles, who began a week's skiing holiday at Cloisters only yesterday with his sons. The news was held back until he had been told. He said he was completely devastated. The three princes are expected to travel home tomorrow. Many other members of the royal family are already at Windsor. The funeral arrangements have not yet been announced, but the service is expected to be held at Westminster Abbey after a lying in state at Westminster Hall. The Queen Mother was always proud of her Scottish roots. Even at the age of 101, she chose to spend her final summer in Scotland. And tonight at Buckingham Palace, where she reigned as Queen and where she'd hoped to celebrate her daughter's Golden Jubilee in June, a lone piper sounded a lament for her long and eventful life. Jennie Bond, BBC News.
For 3 days and 3 nights now, tens of thousands of people of all ages and from many parts of the United Kingdom and beyond have queued patiently and quietly on both sides of the River Thames to file through Westminster Hall in silence and for just a few brief minutes to turn their heads as they pass and pay respect to an old lady of 101 years and 6 more months, who, in some unique way, had become, for many of them, although most had never met her, part of their lives for what seemed forever. The Princess Royal, Prince William and Prince Harry, Peter Phillips, Commodore Lawrence watched from above. An endless gallery of human faces, crowned heads of Europe, a London cabbie on his way home at 3 a.m, elderly East Enders remembering the days and nights of the Blitz, a mother pushing a pram, a couple who decided to fly across an ocean just to be here, a man kneeling to give his small children a lesson in history. How difficult to share your grief with the world at large.
The cameras have been asked to leave Westminster Hall at this stage to allow the 4 grandsons to at least carry part of their vigil in private with their own memories of their grandmother. And as the Queen Mother's 4 grandsons finish their watch at the lying-in state, Her Majesty the Queen now speaks from Windsor Castle.
Ever since my beloved mother died over a week ago, I have been deeply moved by the outpouring of affection which has accompanied her death. My family and I always knew what she meant for the people of this country, and the special place she occupied in the hearts of so many here, in the Commonwealth, and in other parts of the world. But the extent of the tribute that huge numbers of you have paid my mother in the last few days has been overwhelming. I have drawn great comfort from so many individual acts of kindness and respect. Over the years, I have met many people who have had to cope with family loss, sometimes in the most tragic of circumstances. So I count myself fortunate that my mother was blessed with a long and happy life. She had an infectious zest for living, and this remained with her until the very end. I know, too, that her faith was always a great strength to her. At the ceremony tomorrow, I hope that sadness will blend with a wider sense of thanksgiving, not just for her life, but for the times in which she lived. A century for this country and the Commonwealth, not without its trials and sorrows, but also one of extraordinary progress, full of examples of courage and service, as well as fun and laughter. This is what my mother would have understood, because it was the warmth and affection of people everywhere which inspired her resolve, dedication, and enthusiasm for life. I thank you for the support you are giving me and my family as we come to terms with her death and the void she has left in our midst. I thank you also from my heart for the love you gave her during her life and the honour you now give her in death. May God bless you all.
This is BBC One. Now the news with Hugh Edwards.
The Queen gives heartfelt thanks for the tributes to her late mother. Keeping vigil this evening, the Queen Mother's 4 grandsons. And still the crowds are gathering. This is the scene tonight at Westminster.